Hello, people. Welcome back to another video by your big Aniki, Chad, Marco. Now, before we get started, make sure you attack the like button and let's dive right into these waters. So, this video is called Marriage is the Antithesis of Male Authority. You knew it was coming. I've touched a lot of subjects over the years regarding MGTOW subjects, dating, women and whatnot. My virginity, my lifelong quest for virginity. But I never quite touched on marriage in one of these vlog videos. And I didn't want to approach it with the same sort of talking points and things that guys talk about when they talk about not wanting to get married. You know, the obvious things like, going through a crazy divorce, losing half of your resources or wealth and going through the whole divorce proceed. That's bad, obviously. But one thing that stands out to me in regards to why I wouldn't want to get married is basically exactly what I said in the video. Marriage is the antithesis of male authority. That is my primary problem with marriage. In the West, I should clarify, marriage in the West. Let me make sure I put that in the title. Marriage in the West is the antithesis. So what do I mean? So one day I was watching Coach Greg Adams. I was watching one of his streams, and he played a soundbite from, I forgot the girl's name, but she's a black female YouTuber, and she's kind of like the female version of what you see in the black male manosphere, where she's talking shit about black men and all that. And she said, and again, I'm watching his stream, and he's playing a clip from her where she's talking shit about black men. Fair, cool, right? That's not the issue. But she said something that stood out to me. And she said that, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but she said something like, black men don't have any authority. And that kind of stuck in that word, authority, that stuck out in my mind. Like, what does authority really mean? Like, authority is like a right to power, a right to rule. You make the rules, you set the standard, you reward, you punish according to, the program that you set up for your particular environment that you have authority over. And so obviously, when you talk about relationships in a manner of speaking that's in line with like traditional gender roles, the expectation of man is to be the leader, is to be the authority figure within their relationship, regardless of how much progress women have made and, becoming bosses, bad bitches and all that. And women have done quite a lot for themselves. They're more educated than ever and all these different things. They still have the same expectation that they want the man to be the leader in their relationship. They want to be like even when you talk about a subject like, who approaches who first, they want the man to lead the way. So this whole man should lead is still prevalent and favored from women when it comes to relationship dynamics. And so when I look at something like marriage and I don't see how you could make an argument in favor of marriage when it takes away from the authority and power that a man can have in a relationship. And so obviously it's important for me to break down like, okay, well, what do you mean? How does marriage remove power from a man? And so I think a big part of it is kind of like the point that most guys focus on when they talk about why they wouldn't want to get married or why they advise other men not to get married. And it's the possibility of losing your resources in the case of a divorce. That's one of the biggest ways that a man gives away power to the woman when he marries her. Because essentially what you're doing is that as a man, you've built a kingdom. And let's assume in this scenario that you're a man and, you have your life together. You have a lot of resources and, maybe not necessarily wealthy, but you have something to lose, right? Now I know that sounds crazy coming from a guy like me, living with his mom, but I hope to be a man in a position like that someday. Right. And I'm sure most of you guys feel the same way, whether you're there on the journey or just starting out. That's where most men want to be the king of their own castle, the ruler of their own kingdom, so to speak, in control of their own space. And so when you marry a woman, and typically a woman is not going to want to marry a man who is making less than her or is not making a decent amount of money. Women tend to want to date and marry up. They want to marry somebody that they feel like is in a way superior to them. Kind of like what Patrice O'Neal says several times when you look at his old interviews and things like that. Women want to be able to look at their man and think that he's better than them. And I believe that as well. And so that's why a lot of times women don't want to settle for guys who make less money than them. It's just, it's like, it's an ick thing. It's unattractive. But my point is, when you marry a woman, you give her the ability, the power, the legal right to split your kingdom in half on a whim. Because of no fault divorce, you don't have to cheat on her. You don't have to beat her. You don't have to be abusive to her in any way. And she can initiate a divorce and then put you through the divorce proceedings. And of course, I've never been through that, but I've heard some horror stories. And one thing that I've learned recently, it's not just about paying the woman. You end up having to pay her lawyers as well. You got to, in a lot of these situations, the man ends up having to pay the woman's lawyer fees. And so divorce lawyers have an incentive in these situations because they get paid off of divorces. And, when you talk about divorce statistics, it's a little iffy because a lot of guys throw around that whole 50% stat. And that's not entirely accurate because I think it factors in people who were divorced twice and 3 times over or married and divorced twice and 3 times over. So it's not 100% accurate, but even if it's like 35, 40%, that's still a big number. And then the scary part is that women initiate like 3/3, like a third of marriages. Divorces, my bad. Women initiate, I believe, anywhere from like 70 to like the low 80% of divorces. And so what does that tell you? Now, of course, obviously in some of these situations, the man just might be abusive or whatever. But I believe that a lot of times these divorces are initiated because women stand to gain from divorcing these men because they're going to get, a split of the pie that the man worked so hard to build. And so what does this have to do with authority and power in a relationship? Now, obviously, when you can split somebody's kingdom in half on a whim, that's power. And so this is understood throughout the entirety of their relationship. The man understands it, the woman understands it. And so what this does, it gives the woman leverage. Because she knows in her mind that if he don't act right, I can fuck him up. If he don't act right, I can fuck him up. One thing I always think about in the Temptations movie, there's a part in it when David Ruffin is starting to act crazy and rebellious and kind of everybody's starting to hate him. Otis is narrating and he's like, success turns you into who you really are. And I think power is kind of the same thing. When you get power, it brings out a different side of you. And one thing that I've always noticed when guys talk about relationships and marriages is how women would do this bait and switch thing, where they'll be one way in the early stages of a relationship, but then they'll change during the later half of it, where now you have kids together, you're living together, you're married. Now, all of a sudden, the woman isn't putting out sex as much. She's not as submissive. She's not as cooperative. Now, I don't know how much of this is conscious versus subconscious. I really don't. But I think the simple fact is when a woman is in a scenario or situation where she has power over a man, it's very likely that it's going to affect her behavior towards you because she knows she has leverage. I don't have to submit to you because at the end of the day, I have power over you. And so this is one of my biggest problems with marriage is that when you give the woman the power to split your kingdom in half like that, and not only that, it gives them power in other ways as well, because now you fully committed to them. There's a ring involved. There's legal documentation involved. The state is involved. Like, it's very deep. It's not just about them potentially divorcing you. It's just the whole setup of marriage and what it means. Like, it's one thing when you guys weren't in a serious relationship, right? And then you might have had sex with somebody else. She can't hold that against you the same way she could if you were married and vowed to be, sexually exclusive. You see what I'm saying? It's stuff like that. Like, it's the little things and it's the big things. But my point here is that how can a man be a leader or an authority figure in a situation where the other half, in a way, has so much power over them? And I'll use this as the perfect example, right? If you know anything about sports, in particular, we're going to focus on the NBA here, right? In basketball, in the NBA, a lot of times you have star players, superstar players. And these guys, they're so talented, they're so popular, they generate so much money that they get to a point where they're calling the shots on these teams, even more so than the coaches and the GMs. These guys have leverage because of their superstar power. And I think you can point to guys like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, guys like these, when they're on a team, they have so much leverage and power that they can dictate who stays and who goes. If LeBron James wants a player gone, more than likely that's gonna happen. If Michael Jordan was in a situation where like there's a free agent and he wants him, he could push the organization, hey, get this guy, get this month, right? But on the flip, now, right now, like just for example, right now, LeBron James plays with the Lakers, and his big co-star is AD, and underneath them is like Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, etc. Austin Reeves ain't got the same level of power as LeBron James. He been going off, but he ain't got the same amount of clout as LeBron. Austin Reeves can't get Rui Hachimura off the team. Austin Reeves can't they recently got rid of Russell Westbrook. If LeBron James wanted Westbrook to stay and Austin Reeves didn't, Austin Reeves don't have no power or leverage to make that shit happen. He's a good player, but he's at the end of the day, he's like a really good role player. So he don't have the same leverage. And so what I'm saying is, part of what comes with that power, though, is that there's expectations. There's expectations for LeBron to be the leader. When they win, he gets the bulk of the credit. When they lose, he gets most of the blame. Well, not for, sometimes, he ain't got no help, but that's a whole other thing, right? But my point is, leaders have authority. When you're in a leadership position, you have real authority. In a marriage situation, men don't have real authority. You're giving the leadership title, which is a title that implies authority, but it's not real. You're a paper tiger at best. It's not that you don't have any power, but you've given too much power away to the woman and the state. Now, see, this is fine if you really believe in like equal partnerships, but you can't say that the man should lead and be the man. And also, I just don't believe that you can say that and also say equal partnership, because the leader and the followers are not equal. The boss and the boss and the people under him are not equal. The employer and the employee are not equal. Now it's a mutually beneficial relationship but it's not equal. Being the CEO, the boss, the leader, the authority figure comes with a certain degree of power. And the problem with marriage is that it takes away too much power away from the man. That's why I always say marriage is the antithesis of marriage in the West is the antithesis of male authority. It is absolute anti-male authority. And I think, and again, going back to conscious versus subconscious, I think whether you like it or not, whether a woman is doing these things on purpose or not, I think that it ruins and hurts the relationship when a woman knows she has power over a man. I believe that if a truly submissive feminine woman who wants that dynamic of I'm the feminine, he's the masculine, I'm the follower, he's the leader, she has to be in the situation where that's really what's going on. And with marriage, it's fake. It's fake authority. It's fake power. And she knows that. So how can she submit to somebody that doesn't have any real power over her? Think about, how can a woman submit to a man that doesn't have real power over her? Look at it even from a physical perspective. Why do most women want a guy that's big and tall and this and that? It's because it plays into those sexual dynamics of, again, I'm the feminine, he's the man. Like, that's what helps make the relationship work, what makes her attracted to you. But, you know, the power of a man isn't just in his size and his muscles. It's in his leverage that he has in his day-to-day life. Ownership of his property and his cars and his house and, you know, the money he has. That's his power too, his status. And going back to Patrice O'Neal, one thing that he says a lot when you look at his philosophy in regards to relationships, he believes that women almost instinctively always push men towards being more feminized. Some would call it like shit test. I know that like Rollo Tomasi, he calls it what he call it? What the hell did he call betatization by 1,000 concessions, which is a play on the saying, you know, death by 1,000 cuts. Women turn their man into a more beta version of themselves slowly over time. You start giving up more and more ground, more and more of who you are. You know, oh, I don't like when you go out with your homies on Saturday nights and, you know, oh, we should move over here away from where all your family is at. And oh, we should move in together. We should get married, right? All these little things. Oh, you know, I know you like dogs, but I'd rather have a cat. And it's the little things over time. And I know, going back to Patrice O'Neal, one thing that's funny, he said, the amount of time that it takes to fag you up, that's how long she's going to stay in a relationship to enjoy you being that feminized version of yourself, and then she's going to leave you. So if it takes her 5 years to turn you into a beta, she's going to spend 5 years enjoying you as that beta. Then she's going to, that, you know, obviously, you know, he's kind of pulling numbers out of his ass, but generally speaking, this is what you see a lot of when we go back to these divorce statistics. In a way, over time, like in fact, move back a little bit. Why was she attracted to you in the first place? Because she saw a masculine, free, maybe not necessarily an alpha male, but you were a man and you were free, unchained, unbound, living your life free as a bird. And look at how you guys get into a relationship and slowly over time, you start settling down more and more. You're not going on as much and you're not doing this on the, because I've seen that with one of my friends. I remember, you know, in his first serious relationship, when they first met, like he was wild animal, right? Just living his life. And then over the course of the relationship, she baited his ass up over the course of a few years. And then the relationship ended. But one thing I must say, and this is why I think it's important for me to say that specifically is marriage in the West that's the antithesis of male authority. Because obviously marriage in like fucking Saudi Arabia or Iran or Afghanistan is completely different. But why is that? So the thing is, marriage is not inherently a bad thing. That's not what I'm trying to say. But if the environment and the system under which marriage operates leans so much towards the woman having power over the man, and this goes down to societal norms and peer pressure, a lot of things, then it does become a situation where the woman is going to have power over the man. And not only is that going to allow women to exploit men, I think it also is going to make men less attractive in these situations, because subconsciously she recognizes that he doesn't have real authority over her. That's not attractive. But when you look at these other countries where women, and I'm not saying that we should be like them. Really, I don't give a fuck, because I wouldn't get married anyway. I wouldn't get married in the West, the East, the North, or the South, on the moon. I ain't getting married anyway. But that's neither here nor there. When you look at places like Iran and Afghanistan, it's different because the laws aren't set up the same way. I don't know exactly how it is over there, but I would imagine they don't have shit like no fault divorce. And you gotta look at it too from like just how, look at how much pressure the women are over there in turn. Like, as far as I understand, they can't hold the same level of jobs as the men can. I don't think women over there can probably make as much money as the men can. So they have more of an incentive to stay within a relationship, to stay within a marriage. And then on top of that, you know, again, the religious pressure of the necessity to stay married, to get married and stay married. The family, how would it look on the family if you divorced your husband and was out here without your the headscarf and shit, and was like it's a completely different environment in other countries where women don't have the same amount of power, and they're under a much more pressure to uphold their role as the woman, as the female in a relationship, which comes with certain sacrifices and things of that nature. But in the West, it's completely different. The roles are completely reversed in terms of, like, you know, which gender has more power over the other. But that's basically all I wanted to say about this subject, because I always wanted to touch on marriage, and maybe I'll do a more in-depth video on the podcast someday. But yeah, that's my motto. That's my marriage in the West is the antithesis of male authority. It is the antithesis of male leadership. And I'll just say this: when you look at men who would be considered to be in a successful marriage, when you look at what they say, the best case scenario is to be with a woman who doesn't abuse the power that you give to her. That's the best case scenario. Think about that. You don't have real power. The best case scenario of a married man is to be with a woman who doesn't use the power that he gives her against him. And that might sound fine to some people, but that's not real authority. That's not true power. True power is absolute. True power is you ain't got a choice. I'll run this. You can't fuck this up. That's real power. But I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I'll see you guys around. And yeah, John.